Hi, this is American Perspective with Patriot Mom 007. Today we are joined by our Secretary of State-elect in the primaries, Mr. Mark Finchem.
Not elect yet.
Well, elected
I'm the
in the
Republican
primaries,
nominee.
Nominee. But you were.
But if I
well, you made it over the first ballot round.
Yeah, but if I'm the Secretary of State-elect, that means I beat Adrian Fontes.
Okay, so that is from
That's
his
the
lips
goal.
to God's ears. This is what we're going for. So maybe I'm saying it out loud to produce that outcome, right? Positive thinking, we like to
Make
go.
it so.
Make it so, everybody make it so. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hard to get hold of you. This guy is very busy around town, of course, like all our candidates are for obvious reasons. So we are thankful he had some time today. And I just wanted to have him on. I wanted to highlight some things about Mr. Finchem that maybe you don't know, maybe you do know, maybe your neighbor doesn't know and you can share with them. Because our goal right now at the grassroots level, for which I'm a part of, and a PC in my area in LD3, is go LD3, is
no, I was talking about the PC.
And go PCs make it happen.
That's right.
Is to highlight some things about our candidates that maybe you hear opposite on the air, on other stations, or on the news, or on a commercial that may not be true and probably are not true. And I'm not here to say they are or not, but I am here to let somebody explain if they are or not, so that you have a gauge when you're voting in November of truth from the person and not the media. So take me out of it and let's talk to Mr. Finchem. So tell us, let me just start to, if people don't know, you're not from Arizona, but you've been here a very long time, over 20 years. So tell us.
1999.
99 when I moved here.
Yeah.
And you came out here from Michigan. You were a police officer.
I was.
You were.
Retired after 21 years of service in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
On the streets?
On the streets.
How was that back then?
Volunteered midnights in the ghetto.
Oh, yeah, the midnight shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting shift.
Your shift started 15 minutes before your shift started, and it was usually not over until a couple of hours after your shift had ended.
And how was that working with the police department back then?
Very different than today.
Yeah.
Very different. Than
Positive?
No.
In ways?
No, I think one of the things to think about is that law enforcement officers meet people quite possibly on the worst day of their life.
True.
Time and time and time again. Same with, I was also a level 3 paramedic. I can't count the number of people who I know for a fact I met them on the worst day of their life.
Right. That's a lot of trauma going on when you're called out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you did your part many times to save a lot of people.
I loved my career.
Yeah.
God built me with a heart for service. My name is Mark William Finchem. So Mark is servant of God. William, noble spirit, resolute protector.
Wow, strong.
So I've been and I was born late in April.
Okay.
So that for the star people,
yep.
That makes me an all-in Taurus.
Okay.
So strong-willed.
Stubborn.
Right. But very
headstrong.
Well,
in a positive way.
Factual.
Mm-hmm.
So in today's environment, we have fear and we have fact.
Right.
So people who are operating out of fear invariably will make the wrong decisions.
Yep.
People who are operating out of fact will invariably make less wrong decisions. Just because they have a grounding, an understanding of what the underlying issues are.
Right.
We've talked a lot about election security and election integrity here in Arizona, and I've been a part of that conversation not just here but nationwide. And we've got a media that is willfully ignorant of the evidence that's been collected.
On film?
But we'll probably get into that.
We're going to get into that for sure. Yeah, there's a lot behind that. So I do want to also highlight in 2015 that you were elected in Arizona to serve on our legislature. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that process. You had 4 terms, I believe. You're in your fourth consecutive term.
I'm winding down my 8th year.
You are to move on to something bigger and better for our state, hopefully. So tell us about your experience with the legislature, how that works for people who are learning about it now or don't know anything about it. Like myself, I'm new to the whole politic game. I just say that all the time, so people understand it's not just you, it's me too. Yeah. What's going on in our legislature, even then or now, how you see it changing?
Over the last 8 years, I've seen a significant change in the personality of the legislature. When I first came into office, it was mildly collegial, and now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but the entire Democrat caucus signed on to a ginned-up letter that accused me, made horrible accusations. I mean, we're talking about capital crimes. Just because I was present in Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
Yeah,
gave
that
a
was the
full
problem.
explanation.
I didn't hear about it. I did not know they did that,
Yeah,
actually.
and they in doing that, they weaponized, and this went to the Department of Justice Criminal Division.
Wow.
Think about what they did to a colleague.
Right.
That's reprehensible.
I assume they wanted you not to be able to run in the future for anything.
They, I think, recognized that Mark Finchem was about to be a serious threat to the Democrat Party in their pursuit of Secretary of State.
Right.
Now, that decision had not yet been made. There were some conversations that were ongoing, but I just think that is reprehensible. Everybody knew, including the media, by the way, that participated
I'm sure.
in it. They knew that I was a witness, not a suspect.
Right.
In fact, to this day, I'm a witness, not a suspect.
Have they brought you in for any witness testimony?
I've given a statement.
Okay.
I've responded to subpoenas
Okay.
that, quite frankly, are illegal. It's an illegally constituted committee with the whole J6
Right.
kangaroo court. But be that as it may, the thing that really disturbs me is the referral to the criminal division of the U.S. Department of Justice.
Right.
Based upon hearsay, innuendo. They had no fact. What they were reading is, the Washington Post and the New York Times. Those people wouldn't know the truth of it. Ran over them like a bus.
With a news truck.
With a news truck. Yeah. So the legislature has changed a lot, and it saddens me to see the level to which it has been negatively impacted. I think that in this next election, we've got a change in some of the personalities that contributed to that are going to be gone. I pray that we get back to a collegial kind of relationship. But just a word of caution to the Democrat colleagues out there that are either going to retain office or gain office. Don't be the party of no, because you can't say you never work with us when you vote no on everything.
Right.
Everything of substance.
Right.
So, I think that I wish there were more independents that were running for office, quite frankly.
Yeah, maybe there will be in the future. I mean, it's
We shall
shifting a
see.
little bit.
We
Maybe
shall
some
see.
people get involved who wouldn't otherwise. I know it's an uphill battle for us in our legislature. We even have some of our side that work against the votes when it comes down to it. Certainly in election integrity, I know that was the case several times. And again, I do not follow legislatures very closely. I do tune in sometimes to the hearings. They have them posted through Arizona Free Enterprise. You can check out. So they're a good organization, and they put out a lot of information.
You can also watch them on cable.
And cable, yes.
Channel 120, it's either 123 or 128. I don't watch it because
Right.
I'm usually there.
Right.
But you can
That's good to
watch it
know.
on cable.
Okay, so you should be checking out what's going on in our legislature to see how they interact, to see how they speak, even just how they speak to each other is kind of interesting sometimes when I have watched. So I highly recommend you at least get involved on a watching level to start your interactivity in your community so that you can decide if it's worth getting more into. I think if you watched it, more people would want to get involved.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
There's some things that constituents can do that are really simple. If you go to the Capitol, you can log on to the Request to Speak system. In that system, you'll be able to find every single bill that is put up for a vote and that goes through committee, and you'll be able to actually input
Give it
your comments.
thumbs up
You can give
and
thumbs up,
comments, yeah.
thumbs down.
Yep.
You could add, I think it's 500 characters of comments, and those are actually, they become a part of the record, the official record. So when somebody goes to court, for example, and says, well, we have a question about the legislative intent of this bill, and you have 500 people who have provided meaningful, substantive commentary,
Right?
and you have legislators, because everything is recorded, in committee debate, teasing out some of the things that constituents want done with a particular piece of
Sure.
legislation. It's easy for the court to ascertain what was the legislative intent that might be in controversy from the opposition side.
Right.
And it gives a fuller picture, if you will,
Right.
of what legislators were responding to during the give and take of a committee hearing, and hearing all of the people who are involved with giving testimony, whether they're lobbyists or constituents or who they might be. So saving that record, being a part of that system is huge. The
Right.
request to
So that's the request to
system.
speak is RTS.
Mhm.
Also, Easy AZ, I'm going to plug them right now, Mercy Hamilton, easyaz.org. You can get on there. They help you get right to speak also, and they'll help you do the process. It takes a few minutes, honestly. So
And by the way,
involved.
once you are on the request to speak system, you can provide your comments from home while you're watching
Yes.
it, either on your laptop or on your television.
I actually do right to speak, so I did get involved in that this year through Free Enterprise Club. So
Mhm.
it's actually very interesting. So Doris just hit me with a great question, and I've thought of this, and a lot of us have thought of this. So maybe you will answer, Katie Hobbs. Is there no conflict of her remaining in office? Now I know. Obviously,
No,
we would say yes, but I mean, like legally on our books in Arizona, is there no lever in place that prohibits this from happening the way it is?
Under current law, there is not.
That's
However,
weird.
and the question you're asking,
Yeah.
is there a conflict of interest when the Secretary of State, who is the senior elections officer for the state, when that individual is running for a governor's position,
Which she is.
not running for re-election, quite frankly, even running for re-election, it's my personal opinion, and this is something that I will probably advocate for once I'm elected Secretary of State. It's the one office that I believe once you've had a primary and you are the nominee for your party, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Once you are the nominee for your party and you're the Secretary of State, a resign to run statute should trigger your required resignation
Yeah, that makes sense.
to create that barrier between
yes.
the potential. Because think about this. The role of the Secretary of State, and this is what I'm committed to, is to see to it that everyone abides by the law. Everyone is held accountable for following the law. Now we're talking about parties, we're talking about candidates, we're talking about supporters. We're also talking about elections officials
Right.
and government
Support me,
electeds.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you got a Secretary of State who has a stake in the contest,
Yeah.
that's not an arm's length
That
transaction.
gets very muddy,
Okay.
very fast.
So the other thing that I would advocate for in the future is that we go through a Senate confirmation hearing
Okay.
for the Secretary of State's second,
Right.
whoever
would
that
make
might be.
sense. Right. They would just come up and fill the
or
position.
certain members of the staff that are considered seconds.
Okay.
People who, if the Secretary of
Could fill
State
the position.
leaves,
Sure.
who could fill that position, who is not running for
And there's no
I
conflict
think-
in office.
And there's no conflict in office. I think that is a reasonable response to the concerns that many people have promoted. And by the way, I'm hearing this from independents, from
Oh,
Republicans, from
everyone.
Democrats. Everyone's like, wait a
pretty
minute.
obvious
How
problem.
is it that the Secretary of State can continue to serve in office when they're responsible for
While running a
perhaps
campaign
their own
for
promotion?
governorship
Right.
of all
Yeah.
things.
So I'll advocate for for that statute to be discussed, to
Okay.
be debated by the legislature, and I hope that the legislature will put something into place that requires a resignation clause to run.
And all right, along those lines, I hear a lot about term limits being discussed among the groups. A lot of people are for it. I would think more today people are for it than against it at this moment. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we already have term limits. They're the law.
As
So, for
far
example,
as,
the
right.
legislature-
I'm sorry, you're right, we do.
Right.
So as Secretary of State, what is our term limit on that?
You get 2 terms.
Okay.
So that's 8 years.
Okay.
Funny, huh? Everything
So-
seems to be 8 years.
I know,
You got
right?
governor, you got legislators, you got.
So that's
everybody.
still 16 years all said and done.
No,
so,
that's 8.
Well, I mean, but if you go from one office
Oh.
to another office, I mean, you end up getting into the high double digits of serving your state on a capacity, not you specifically, just in general in office. I think a lot of people are saying maybe people shouldn't be in for 20 years or 30 years in different capacities.
And see, I guess I have a little bit different view. I think the question is, have people held them accountable for their behavior? Have people held them accountable for the job that they've done? Have they
Right.
represented the interests of the people? I mean, one of the things that I have a serious problem with is members of Congress who go in making $160,000 a year, and maybe they have a couple $1 million net worth, and they come out $100 million to the better.
I see that a lot. Like, I need to get in office. I'm
Yeah.
in the wrong job
No,
for sure.
No, you don't
No, I'm
need to get in
teasing you
office.
on that.
I think that it goes back to Exodus 18:21. Choose from among you godly men, and I presume women as well, godly men, disinterested in personal gain, to serve the thousands, the hundreds, the fifties, and the tens. The key here is disinterested in personal gain.
Right.
My net worth is about the same as it was 8 years ago. Shame
No.
on Mark.
If I
but
can be honest with you about that, so I don't know Mark very well. I see him around town in events. I told him too in the ballot, I was not voting for him until the last moment. It took me a while. I had to get to know who he was, and I started meeting him out. And I highly recommend you meet your candidates out between now and
Absolutely.
November. It's important because it actually helps determine your vote. Like, I literally in the ballot booth voted for him, okay? So it's not like Mark and I are BFFs or anything like that. We're not.